Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 497. Gaichin. Part 1. Currently, by 9158's picture transmission is in a temporary suspended state. You must have done that voluntarily. It might be because of Baihyung's death, or maybe there was a problem trying to transmit from within the arc itself. Whatever the case might have been, it was a good thing for us. It had been so much nicer if only the person before our eyes wasn't there, though. Anna Croft. I stared at the prophet's blonde hair fluttering in the wind. I also sensed additional presences within the dense forest. They probably were the squad under her direct supervision, the Zarathustra. Why isn't this pebble or rock or whatever not working on her? I didn't reply to Han Suyong. Didn't have enough time now to explain everything that happened in the Isle of Reincarnators, anyhow. Rather than patiently wait for my answer, though, Han Suyong simply gripped my wrist hard. And then, she pointed at Anna Croft with her free hand. Vicious licks of black flame danced on the tip of her pointing finger. Move out away or die. Their gazes collided in the air. Eerie, bluish ghostly aura permeated within Han Suyong's irises as she activated predictive plagiarism. At the same time, the eyes of Anna Croft, wielder of Great Demon's Eye, also swirled in a crimson aura. Faint sparks danced in the air as the gazes of these two capable of reading the future collided. The latter maintained this tense standoff for a bit before opening her mouth. Kim Dokja, do you want to escape from this floor? Han Suyong's complexion changed colors and she growled unhappily. Hey, you. You ignoring me now? I can help you. Weren't you trying your hardest to kill us not too long ago? As Han Suyong's words came to an end, I sensed the movements of the constellations in the surroundings. I even noticed a few that began destroying the terrain indiscriminately in order to locate us. It would be hard to buy more time here. I didn't have a choice. If we sided with you back then, we'd all have been wiped away. And the current situation is different how? Are you really going to waste your time this way? I'm pretty sure it's you people feeling the urgency, not me. Do we have a reason to trust you? Are you the type to trust someone even with a good enough reason? In any other circumstances, I'd have gladly accepted her help. However, Anna Croft was someone who signed a direct contract with the whole nebula. You're the Nebula Asgard's incarnation. Nebula, Asgard's great fables are waking up from their ancient slumber. And the current floor just so happened to be the cabin where Asgard's constellations resided. Anna Croft readily admitted to that and nodded her head. True. I'm their incarnation. In that case, don't you find this even more strange? I'm right here, looking at you both, yet why haven't they rushed here yet? I too had been keeping an eye on the constellations loitering around our vicinity. It looked as if they couldn't even hear our conversation. Quite likely, she resorted to some kind of an unknown method to block their gazes somehow. What are you scheming? I stared into Anna Croft's deep, mysterious eyes. Exclusive skill, reading comprehension, is activating. More than anyone out there, the incarnation Anna Croft places importance in realistic causes. In a certain sense, this world's most righteous person could be none other than Anna Croft. If Yu Young-hyuk's cause was built upon rage and hatred, then Anna Croft's was built upon the foundation of righteousness. The survival of the absolute majority. Her aim was to safely preserve the city of her birth, Las Vegas, the United States of America, and on top of that, Earth itself during the hell of scenarios. However, America was destroyed during this world line. Her home vanished on the same day that the Great Apocalypse began. All that remained were the small number of Zarathustras following after her. Even then, her complexion wasn't as gloomy. No, her expression seemed to be filled with a certain fervor, instead. It was an expression of a person getting nearer to the world she wanted to see. While feeling the gentle vibration spreading within the entirety of the ship, I opened my mouth. You're thinking of taking over this arc, aren't you? Right then, Han Suyong next to me gasped out as if she had reached the same conclusion as me. Anna Croft grinned refreshingly. How wonderful it is that you're so quick on the uptake. It won't be easy to drive out the constellations and take over the Ark. However, it is the last chance given to humanity. Her plan was quite clear. The final Ark was a great Fable weapon designed to transport Fable seeds to another world line. If she managed to defeat the constellations and acquire the controlling authority of this Ark, then she should be able to transport humanity to a brand new world line. And everything would begin anew in that place. Not one constellation can be left alive. Even if that includes you. While listening to her, I recalled an ancient text from the Ways of Survival. Anna Crofts' perfect night. A world of darkness where not one starlight shined, Anna Croft wished for humanity to live freely again under that darkness. If it was the world she dreamed of, then my companions should be able to survive as well. I felt slightly lonely as I opened my mouth again. In that case, we'll be temporary allies. We'll work together until we reach the Ark's core. Until then, I shall lend you the power of my precognition. Han Suyang next to me sent a message in my direction. I've been checking her through lie detection, and she hasn't been lying. Doesn't look like she's been using poker face either. I nodded my head. Alright. Let's work together. Asterisk. While going through the Fable Baihyung had left behind, I read the surrounding topography. The exit at the outside of the forested area is towards the branch reaching out to the heavens. One thing I realized while following after Anna Croft was that our current area was not a plain, but a floor above a certain tree. Gotta admit, their worldview setting is pretty slick. Han Suyang muttered out, evidently impressed by the sight. Seeing such a detailed recreation of Asgard's worldview, I began to fully realize just how long they had been preparing this final arc. This shouldn't be the whole universe tree Yggdrasil. It was probably a mock-up. Even then, this tree was more than wide and expansive enough already. Most likely, the Asgard's constellations would live on while enjoying the vested rights founded upon this fable in the next world line. Anna Croft quietly stared at such constellations, before shifting her head away and focused on the way ahead instead. Han Suyang observed her and spoke to me. By the way, will she be alright? The price of betraying a nebula should be huge, though. Before I could answer, though, Anna Croft opened her mouth first. My situation is not something you should be concerned about. What the hell? You can even eavesdrop on this? I only guessed that you were using midday tryst since you two haven't said anything for a while. Sounds like you have a trusty backer or something? Han Suyang's words caused Anna Croft's expression to harden for the first time. What do you mean? I was wondering if it's logically possible for a measly little incarnation to block off the gazes from an entire nebula, that's all. Han Suyang's right, no incarnation could have pulled that off, regardless of who you were. I quietly glared at the back of Anna Croft's head. Exclusive skill, reading comprehensions, concentration level is rising up even higher. I did have my suspicions. The aura of chaos gently crumbled away behind her. And beyond that, I thought I glimpsed a pair of crimson eyes, not too dissimilar to Anna Croft's. From the get-go, there were only two existences in this world capable of interfering with the channels constellations watched. Kugugugugu. It was right then that lightning suddenly went off in the air. The ground split apart and the surrounding atmosphere began quaking ominously. The sounds of incoming storm could be heard next. Constellation, One-Eyed Father, is slowly blinking its remaining eye. Su-chut-chut. Anna Croft's complexion paled instantly. Even the god of creation, R.A., we fought back in the 98th scenario, didn't possess might of this caliber. As for the status, it easily exceeded Thor's we encountered earlier, by a huge margin. This worldview's most powerful being had just woken up from his slumber, in other words. Odin. We began running. Even if Kim Dokja Company had grown stronger, it was an act of utter stupidity to fight the myth-grade constellation Odin in Asgard's turf. Constellation, One-Eyed Father, is now looking at his world. A terrifying gaze was sweeping across the entire world. And not too long after that, I felt something was looking at us. It's this way. Hurry! There was a tree branch leading up to higher floors of Yggdrasil in the place Anna Croft was pointing at. We quickly ran on that branch, and almost at the same time, the ground beneath our feet lost strength and began collapsing. Faster! I squeezed out every ounce of my energy and ran, and also activated the wind, as well. Exclusive skill, Way of the Wind LV, is activating. All the great fables I've collected so far strengthened the Way of the Wind even more, and it added greater momentum to our traveling speed. I wanted to activate Demon King transformation as well and spread out my wings if it was possible, but one of the wings was wounded just before the transmission and I couldn't do that. Some things was busy chasing us down. Constellation, god of harp and horn, is heeding the Father's order. Constellation, goddess of love and cats, is answering the Father's order. Constellation, one who lost his arm to the wolf of apocalypse, is howling out. Constellation, guardian of the Great Horn Bridge, has detected someone's presence. We're almost there. Anna Croft turned around while saying that, and extended her hands out. Suddenly, the surrounding view changed and the field before her seemed to disappear. It was her speciality, phantom barrier. Constellations got lost in the darkness, suddenly enveloping them, and roared in surprise. Su-cha-cha-chut. Anna Croft's eyes became bloodshot, before blood trickled down from her mouth and ears. It was the cost of going against her own nebula. Even then, she didn't back down, and shouted out. Iris! Selena! Lead the allies away. The two people running way ahead of us took Zarathustra's and ran towards the end of the branch. Run! Hurry! It's right in front of us. Anna Croft went down on one knee while bleeding profusely. She was in no shape to run by herself now. Han Suyong. Even before I was finished, Han Suyong picked Anna Croft up and ran. It didn't take too long for us to reach the end of the branch. What waited for us, there was a mysterious bridge emitting a rainbow of colors. It's the rainbow bridge leading to other floors, the Bifrost. The fantastical bridge only seen within the myth was now laid out before my eyes. Selena and Iris were already halfway across this very bridge. I decided to activate lightning transformation and cross this thing in one go using the momentum. But then, KWA boom. I thought I saw a light flash in the heavens, and then, the center of Bifrost was abruptly cut off. A massive spear that carved up the sky was being summoned back. I instantly recognized what that spear was, the God King Odin's weapon, Gungnir. He chose to eliminate us here by cutting off the bridge leading to another world. I looked back at the group of constellations hot on our heels and bit my lip. We'd definitely be defeated if we choose to fight Odin in this place. Kugugugugu. In the end, the only answer here was to cross the bridge. However, the width of the broken-off section was far too wide, and the storm generated by Odin was madly whipping about in the open gap. Even if I activated both Way of the Wind and Lightning Transformation to their fullest, there was no guarantee of us crossing it safely. Han Suyong shouted out in frustration. Hurry! Isn't there another way? She forcibly shook Anna Croft, prompting the latter to reply helplessly while vomiting out blood. My precognition isn't perfect. But this time I saw clearly. 4 people crossing this bridge. 4 people? I want to ask for clarification, but she had bled far too much and stopped speaking altogether. But then a certain scene popped up in my head. Kim Dokja began thinking. Will it work? However, there was no other path remaining. I looked up to the sky and was greeted by the deluge of indirect messages from the constellations panicking from the channel's sudden upheavals. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, wishes to see the channel's broadcast. Constellation, King Hungmu, complains about the channel's blackout. Constellation, bald general of justice, is searching for the disappeared Kim Dokja. BU. Start the broadcast. Wah. Are you mad? If we opened the channel now, every constellation in the arc would learn of my current location. However, the thing I was planning to do would only work with the channel open. Suchachachuchit. Many constellations are surprised by the screen spreading wide open. A portion of constellations realize that you're in danger and are freaking out. A small number of constellations feel an odd sense of déjà vu at the current situation. I knew all too well what that déjà vu the constellations were talking about. A long time ago, there was an event where they had to cross a cut-off bridge. The Deus Ex Machina that activated on the broken Dongo Bridge. The absolute majority of constellations remember the situation from back then. Nebula, Kim Dokja Company's great fables are shifting. Along with the gazes from the constellations, the probability began writhing wildly. Stage transformation is activating. Suchuchuchuchu. Deus Ex Machina is activating. The bridge that the constellations created back then was being recreated right before our eyes. Plus. Deus Ex Machina, even-numbered bridge. Description: a bridge of light created by the blessing of a constellation. Only the even number of people can cross it. When an odd number of people try to cross it, the bridge will be extinguished immediately. Plus. The even-numbered bridge, been a really long time since I last heard that name. Han Suyong. Take Anna with you and run. What? Hurry up. I activated Way of the Wind on Han Suyong and made her cross the bridge forcefully. Hey, you. Shit. I don't know anymore. I confirmed the distancing back of Han Suyong before turning around. Constellations had begun emerging from Anna Croft's. The even-numbered bridge can only be crossed by an even number of people. The distant Han Suyong's voice and Odin's enraged roar entered my ear one after the other. I unsheathed the unbreakable faith. I wasn't planning on dying in this place. Anna Croft said 4 people. Just before I was about to unleash the electricity from the lightning transformation on the incoming constellations, a loud explosion occurred at the back of the attacking group. Someone was ramming through the constellations like a tank while running towards this way. It was a familiar fable. There was this one particular guy who got summoned to this floor only about a moment ago. His face revealed itself from beyond the rising murky fog of the fable. Keep running, Kim Dokja. The dude busy smacking all the enemies away and smashing the skulls of the constellations, was busy dashing in this direction while carrying a scary light in his eyes. I could only grin wryly. I didn't mind anyone else, but would have preferred not crossing the bridge with that guy. Hey, don't you throw me to the river this time, you bastard. Chapter 498. Gaichin. Part 2. Yu Young-hyuk was running towards the bridge, while Asgard's constellations were chasing after him. The bald general of justice shouted out, "Do your best, descendants." That prompted the one-eyed Mithriya to retort, "Your bald head is caked in sweat. Worry about your own head first. Aren't you going to help them?" "I don't have an incarnation, so how can I?" "You can simply incarnate directly. You must have lost your mind after being trapped here for too long. With the remaining coins, it's impossible even to send a symbolic form down there." The bald general grumbled unhappily and while wiping his head, looked behind him. That's where the boring monotone-colored training hall lied in wait. The 92nd floor scenario location, the Infinite Sanctum. One could only escape from this place after clearing a total of 10 separate trials. And several historical figure-grade constellations, including the bald general of justice, have been trapped in here for many decades. The one-eyed Mithriya complained bitterly. That damn Chiok family fool. What a terrible hardship, this is all because of that man. The first one to sniff out this infinite sanctum was the Goryeo #1 swordsman. If you're a true martial art practitioner, then you simply have to go there. The challenges are very easy, so you could say that place is more like an undiscovered, hidden candy. The next person to clear this scenario after Chiok Junjayong, the maritime war god, said this. Indeed, it is quite doable. You'll be accomplishing a great achievement by clearing it. The historical figure-grade constellations that long to reach the level of martial prowess attained by Cheok Junjiang and Yi Sun Shin all headed to the infinite sanctum after hearing those words. And then, this was their sad state after several decades of failure. We've all momentarily forgotten that we are not the same as Cheok Junjiang or Yi Sun Shin. Regardless of where or what, talent would always pose an issue. The bald general spat out one sigh after another. The collision noises of weapons repeatedly rang out from the center of the training hall. Are those idiots still fighting? The one-eyed Mithraia's lone eye shifted over to the location where two old men were still duking it out. One was a tiger-like man with massive, rippling muscles, while his opponent was a fox-like man who enjoyed slim yet firm muscles himself. Blinding shower of sparks exploded as two swords clashed in the air. Kim Yushin. I'll definitely defeat you today. Gaibeek, you're still no match for me. The stage transformation suddenly activated around them and the Wangsanbil's battlefield spread out. It was none other than the very same battlefield Kim Dokja had recreated in the past via Gampiangwi. Kim Yushin's fragrant dragon flower unit attacked Gaibeek, and the latter also unleashed his grandiose status and crisscrossed the battlefield like a phantom. It was indeed an amazing battle, but the other historical figure-grade constellations simply looked on with bored expression on their faces. The slumbering lady of fine brocade shook her head helplessly, while founder of Hanemgun tooted disapprovingly. The one-eyed Mithraia sneered. Even though they are showing off like that, they know the truth. They know that this isn't Wangsanbil. There should have been a time when they fought earnestly. There was this deep-seated grudge, the resentment that couldn't be resolved even with one's death, after all. These two bet everything of themselves and fought in Wangsanbil. Such a thing definitely did happen. Fable, Sun Setting on Wangsanbil, is continuing with its storytelling every now and then. The fastest thing to get shaved away after becoming a constellation was their own fable. The more a constellation depleted its story, the weaker its power would get. They would grow bored, disinterested, fall into depression, or lose themselves in tedium. Constellations would desperately seek out other fables in order to escape from such a quagmire. In other words, they would search for a new tragedy to escape from this horrible eternal cycle, even if it was only for a brief moment. Clong! As the sounds of the weapons clashing got faster, Coae one stroke of brush spoke. Still, aren't they fighting a bit more spiritedly than before? It seems that the fire's been rekindled after the Demon King of Salvation summoned them back then. What the slumbering lady of fine brocade said caused the constellations to simultaneously shift their eyes over to the scenario channel. There they were, Kim Dokja and Yu Yoonghyak, crossing the bridge. Han Suyang had arrived on the other side and was busy shouting out. Kim Dokja! Faster! The noisy clashings of weapons also ceased. Both Kim Yushin and Gaibeek stopped recreating Wangsanbil before anyone had noticed it and began holding their breaths. One by one, beings gathered around the display panel out of curiosity. Several of them saw the bridge Kim Dokja was crossing and pretended to know what it was. Hold on, isn't that the even-numbered bridge? How nostalgic. What rubbish are you spewing now? You weren't even a subscriber back then. Humph. Odin was chasing after the fleeing Kim Dokja and Yu Yoonghyak. The godly spear Gungnir, famed for never missing its target, was now taking aim at the former's back. Not only that, the storm was growing stronger, gradually slowing down the duo's fleeing speed. The one-eyed Mithraia shouted out. What's this? Odin, that guy is a myth-grade constellation, so what about saving his face? Dokja Gun is also a myth-grade constellation. Are all myth grades the same? Our Kim Dokja is a still weak wet behind the ears myth grade. As if to say their fight earlier was a lie, Kim Yushin and Gaibeek sat side by side before the screen and shouted at the same time. It seems that the descendant was negligent in his training. He might summon me again through Gampiangwi. I should prepare for. You think he'll call you, Gaibeek? Obviously, he'll summon me when in that sort of a situation. When the hint of Wangsanbiel being recreated showed itself again, the one-eyed Mithraea quickly issued a stern warning. Both of you, shut your traps and just focus on the screen. Anyways, that man isn't going to throw Kim Dokja again, I hope? Sparks were dancing around Yu Young-hyuk's right arm as he ran on the bridge. Just as Constellations began worrying, he suddenly grabbed Kim Dokja by his collars with that arm. I knew it. I bloody knew it. Yu Young-hyuk then powerfully threw Kim Dokja forward, but also stepped onto the ladder's back, and they began scything past the storm as if he was surfing the waves. Right next second, the gunmeter thrown by Odin caused a massive explosion along with the blinding wall of light. Quiet. When the light rescinded, only the debris of the destroyed bridge, Bifrost, remained there. What happened? Did they make it? The screen changed to display Kim Dokja's group safely entering the next cabin. Oh. They made it. As if this event also concerned them too, the Korean peninsula's constellations looked at each other and celebrated. Even Gaibik and Kim Yushin awkwardly glanced at each other before lightly bumping fists. Unfortunately, their happiness couldn't last for long. Chase after them. Because the Asgard's constellations began moving after the enraged Odin issued the order. Kim Dokja Company will not be able to escape for long. Everyone here understood this fact. Even if this was Kim Dokja they were talking about, he still shouldn't be able to escape for long from the large nebulas in such a disadvantageous stage. Not only that, the channel had been opened publicly again, so other nebulas in the arc should start aiming at Kim Dokja Company as well. As a heavy silence descended on the group, someone muttered out in resignation. I guess it'll be difficult this time. Honestly, that friend should have died a long time ago. That prompted several constellations to nod their heads. Kim Dokja's life so far had been a series of miracles. Back when he fell below the Dongo Bridge, back when he destroyed the Absolute Throne, when he became the Demon King of Salvation, or even when he went to the 1863rd turn, he should have died many times over. When he appeared as the Outer God King, every single constellation thought that he'd definitely die for real this time. The Incarnation, who was stuck in a much lower scenario than them only a few years ago. And now, constellations were watching the back of Kim Dokja striding forward in the scenario way ahead of theirs. Some watched with envious eyes, while some, contempt at themselves. Everyone wanted to say something, but no one dared to open their mouth. The first one to speak was Gaibik. I once overheard the Shindansu's prophecy in the past. This world line can supposedly become the final world line. No one could predict how far Kim Dokja Company could go. No one knew just where they would end up, or what kind of they would witness. Maybe, they might not even reach the end of this world like so many had predicted, and come to a dead stop. Gaibik grasped his greatsword and slowly got up from the spot. His glare was now locked on the portal in the center of the training hall. That was where the final trial of the Infinite Sanctum was. Kim Yushin asked him. Could you perhaps be planning to challenge it? You might really die this time. If I die, then this place is mine. Gaibik's reply caused Kim Yushin to grin. Ours Wangsanbiel. While cracking his neck muscles, Kim Yushin also stood up from his spot. The third person to stand up was the bald General of Justice. I shall challenge it again as well. His eyes containing his resolution seemed to shine brightly. That prompted several other constellations to stand up as well. The slumbering lady of fine brocade, founder of Hanemgun, COAE One Stroke of Brush, and I hope that you all haven't forgotten that time when we almost got slaughtered while attempting it as a party. The one-eyed Mithraea's words caused everyone's complexion to grow gloomy. They kept failing to break past the last gateway of this scenario until now. However, we can't go and aid them if we don't break through that trial. The thing was, the final pages of the Infinite Sanctum couldn't be cleared with so few participants. It was just that the one-man army Chiok Jun Jiang and Yi Sun Shin leading an armada were freaks of nature, that was all. If only there were handful more constellations here. It was then, a bright light exploded in the corner of the sanctum. Someone is entering the Infinite Sanctum's 10th floor. The one-eyed Mithraya's complexion brightened as he shouted out. Oh? There are newbies incoming? Two beings revealed themselves from the receding light. A short while later, the one-eyed Mithraya's jaw dazedly slackened after realizing who these two were. One was a very big person, while the other was very small. The first one to speak was the smaller figure. It's just as Chiak Junjiang has said. You all are still stuck here? What a bunch of pathetic fools. Kirio spat out as vicious fighting spirit oozed out from his body. My disciple might die because you lot have been meandering about. Asterisk. As the rays of light shattered simultaneously, both Yu Yunghyak and I got sucked into the worldview's exit. When I regained my wits, I found myself being trampled by his feet. I told you not to throw me. He must have found stepping on my back rather unsanitary, because he began lightly dusting his combat boots. Han Suyang, waiting for us, quickly approached us. Judging from her expression, she must have been planning to give me another earful. Whether it was a fortunate thing or not, though, Anna Croft opened her mouth first, instead. I had no idea you'd utilize the stage transformation in that manner. Honestly, I'm somewhat impressed, Demon King of Salvation. Han Suyang shifted her glare to Anna next. Didn't you see all this through your precognition? I did see people crossing the bridge, but I had no idea that it'd be that kind of a bridge. What a complete ripoff you are. I ignored these two's bickering and scanned our new surroundings. The corridors resembling a tree branch's vascular bundle stretched out in all directions. It seemed that this was the corridor of the final arc. I couldn't see the Zarathustras that entered here before us anywhere, though. Anna Croft closed her eyes and felt for something for a bit before opening her mouth. It seems that everyone has scattered in different passageways. Fortunately, no one has lost their lives yet. Our companions seem to be safe too, said Yu Yunghyak, and I nodded my head. Influences of other myths will be weaker in the applicable location. Nebula, Kim Dokja Company's connection is being established again. Now that we were outside the Asgard's worldview, I could start detecting the fables of my companions a little bit. I sensed that they had been scattered here and there. Fable, Demon King of Salvation, is letting its existence known. I strongly emitted my fable in order to gather my companions in one place. If it was them, they should be able to locate me without too much fuss. Boom. Meanwhile, a chain of explosions rocked out from the Asgard's exit we closed shut behind us. Some people were trying to open the door and come out. It was obvious who they were. Let's continue moving. Chapter 499. Gaichin. Part 3. We avoided the Asgard's constellations and ran in the complicated network of the passageways. Constellation, one who lost his arm to the Wolf of Apocalypse, is sniffing out the scent of blood. Constellation, god of harp and horns, musical notes are hovering near your ears. Constellation, progenitor of the reincarnators, is tracing your soul. Constellation, master of Abydos, declares that you won't get lucky the second time. While some constellations cheered us on through the channel, there were others chasing us down through the view from the channel, too. These stars bared their murderous intentions from beyond the tall walls of their own worldview the moment our location had been revealed. There was a reason why we hadn't been caught yet, and that would be because our group consisted of us four. We should not go to the right. I'm getting a bad premonition from there. We trusted in Anna Croft's hunch and changed our direction. She might be our enemy, but in times like this, she also happened to be the most reliable ally, as well. Forks in the road continued to appear. Fable, predictive plagiarism, has begun its storytelling. Odds of death going to the right, 92%. 44% to the left. Keep going forward. Han Suyang shouted out while reading through countless clichés in her head. What are the odds of survival when going forward? I don't know. She shot me a glare and ran in front of us. Coming from above. This hunch was coming from none other than the protagonist himself. Yu Yonghyuk continuously fired off, breaking the sky sword aura. Constellations screamed as they were struck by the preemptive attacks and collapsed on the passage's floor. I thought I could hear intermittent noises of breaking the sky swordsmanship, cutting down some things. Continue running. I abruptly realized the reason why the four of us had been gathered like this. These four were most likely to clear this scenario safely. One of us was a prophet, the other one was a writer, and another one was a regressor. As for the last person, stop here. My words caused the companions to stop immediately. All three of them were looking at me. I glanced back at them and slowly approached the cabin before us. Anna Croft grabbed my shoulder. You aren't planning to enter this cabin, I hope. Yu Yonghyuk didn't say anything. I looked back at my companions and addressed them. Passing through here is the only way. Can't you see what's written on the door of that cabin? No, I could see it very well. And at the same time, I could also very well sense the enormous statuses of the constellations right behind us, too. Olympus. In order to reach the location I want, we must cross Olympus's worldview. According to the fable left behind by Baihyung, we had no choice in the matter. It was rather obvious that Zeus, having tasted humiliation outside, would never let us pass. Odin behind, and Zeus in front, said Yu Yonghyuk as he stepped forward. If we break through here, we'll have a method to fight against them? Yes, definitely. We sensed Odin's status right behind us now. Han Suyong shouted out. Damn it, in that case, hurry up and open it. Those bastards are almost here. We kicked the Olympus' door down and jumped in. Felt as if something was powerfully sucking us in, and when I regained my wits, we were busy walking in the skies above Olympus itself. The immense sky castle of Olympus could be seen in the distance. Nebula, Olympus' constellations have confirmed the identities of the intruders. The atmosphere grew stifling, thunderclouds gathered in no time at all and covered up the sky. Constellation, Throne of Lightning, is exercising his influence on the entirety of Olympus. Olympus' king was now waiting for us. As well as the 12 gods guarding his sides, too. Constellation, Almighty Sun, is mobilizing his chariot. Constellation, Atrocious War God, is lifting his sword. Constellation, Pure Hunter of the Moonlight, is knocking an arrow. Below us on the ocean, we could see the mythical monsters waiting for us, too. Constellation, Monster of the Labyrinth, is howling in your direction. Constellation, Fairy that sings about death, is singing about your death. Everything in this worldview was our enemy. Kurururu. Move. My, Way of the Wind, and Yu Yonghyuk's, Air Walk, activated simultaneously. Anna Croft's, Way of the Storm Winds, and Han Suyong's, Dark Cloud's Big Dipper, followed us right afterwards. We crossed the sky with the fastest speed we could bring out. Meanwhile, the thunderclouds took on an even more ominous vibe. Demon King of Salvation. The 12 gods stuck very close to our rear. Ares' greatsword sliced the air and descended upon us. I swung my unbreakable faith and blocked the attack just in time. Along with the noise of Quadudak, it felt as if every joint in my body was collapsing. It was like being crushed by a tank, actually. This was the true might of the 12 gods now carrying their own worldview on their backs. I unleashed status from my entire body and spoke in true voice. Do not take us lightly, Ares. Great fable, torch that swallowed the myth, is screeching out. I wasn't sure about anyone else, but at the least, I'd not lose to Ares. Because I already possessed a fable of winning against him. Fable, one who defeated the god of war, has begun its storytelling. Unfortunately, our situation had already run into serious problems. The pure hunter of moonlight Artemis was pouncing on Han Suyong wrapped in black flame, while Yu Yonghyuk flying in the air was already engaged in an intense battle against spokesperson of justice and wisdom Athena. Anna Croft, situated at the lowest place among us, was beset by Olympus' lower-ranked constellations. I used to cheer you on, Kim Dokja. A voice came from behind me. That was from the fastest constellation in the sky. The motifs of wings could be seen on his shoes. Unfortunately, you shouldn't have come here. It was the master of Skywalk, Hermes. He looked at me with a genuinely rueful expression and spoke. My father, he's been truly angered. And then, the thunderclouds glowing brightly until then finally exploded, everything seemed to enter slow motion. It felt like the view of the sky was melting down slowly. The lightning seemed to blanket the entire world. None living within this worldview would be able to dodge Zeus's wrath. Han Suyang was looking in this direction, shouting something. I silently mouthed the following to her. It's all right. I slowly sucked my breath in and focused my mind. Ares was smiling triumphantly as if the battle had been decided already. I ignored him and raised my sword up high like a lightning rod. KWA boom. The thunderclap of the sky gathered towards me. This status threatened burst all of my fable veins in one go. However, I endured it. More specifically, the darkness wavering about near the tip of my hand was sucking in Zeus's thunderbolt. An indescribable scream exploded out from my mouth. Great fable, torch that swallowed the myth, is growling. My vision was dyed in red, and fable began flooding out from my mouth. Pachu-chu-chu-chu. Zeus then unleashed an even greater amount of status. I couldn't endure anymore. My powerless body began falling from the air. And now, it's done. This is the end, Demon King of Salvation. Even if it's you, in our worldview, you are. My helplessly falling body after being struck by the thunderbolt suddenly stopped in the air. The unbreakable faith, almost slipping out of my grasp, was gaining some strength. Next up, Ares's frozen stiff expression could be seen. The expression of the god of war, who'd never submit to fear, was filled with emotions of terror. Someone was holding Kim Dokja's sword together with him. It was a very large and sturdy hand. A true voice akin to the noble knight being carved rang out vividly. Why do you think this worldview is yours alone? The gentle yet deep darkness embraced my falling body. How boundlessly arrogant you are, Ares. The night swallowing up the thunderbolt began spreading in the heavens. Constellation, father of the rich night, is incarnating into the final arc. Constellation, queen of the darkest spring, is incarnating into the final arc. Indeed, Olympus' myths weren't Zeus's alone. The reason why their shining daylight could become myths in the first place was because the night existed to call them the day. Underworld is manifesting onto the ground above. A world sleeping in the deepest part of the underground was now waking up. Hades. The king of Underworld set me down on the ground and spoke calmly towards the sky. It's time to settle this, my ancient brothers. Hades' scythe raised up to the sky screeched out, causing the darkness of the underground to pour out towards the heavens like the waterfall flowing in reverse. It was the Underworld's army. When the judges issued the order to advance, the guardian of Tartarus' underbelly, Cerberus, roared out viciously. You lowly creatures from the underground dare to dash. Heroes of this worldview crossed their swords. More heroes aboard the Argos entered the battlefield next. The great army belonging to Zeus and the 12 gods was truly immense. Judge Aeacus collided against Hephaestus, while Cerberus and Minotaur began ripping into each other. Soldiers from the forest symbolizing Artemis rushed in. The wise astrologer Chiron's hooves trampled on the Underworld's army. No matter how deep your night is dash. It was then, Chiron's head flew off into the sky. Monsters crawling out from the underground used their huge fingers to rip off his head and began chewing on it. Zeus dash. Voices of unfathomable sorrow and resentment resounded out. I knew their owners pretty well. And so, Olympus' final gigantomachia began in this fashion. The Titans, Gigantes, every single Titan, having spent all those sorrowful years huddled underground, started revealing their figures under Olympus' night. Not only that, monsters boasting physiques several times larger than these Gigantes rose up as well. They were beings that I ran into some time ago back in the Underworld's prison. All Titans of Purgatory are looking up at Olympus' sky. The 3 brothers of Centimanes, the 100-hander Titan Briareus that fought alongside me back in the Gigantomachia spoke to me. We have finally come this far, child. One of Briareus's hands lightly brushed past my head. This battlefield is for you. The titans challenging the heavens' authority stood up while stepping on the night. Their roars shook the skies of Olympus, their statuses mighty enough to threaten Zeus's throne. And in the center of this battlefield, Zeus was fighting fiercely against Hades. The collision of these two myth-grade constellations caused the pitch-black night and day to intermingle, and the world's time and space collapsed. Persephone, commanding the underworld's army, addressed me directly. Now, go. Do not ever look back. Go, and witness the end you wish to see. I nodded and raised my tottering body up. I swallowed the life and death pill Iseolwa gave me, and all of my fried nerves began recovering bit by bit. I unsteadily walked forward in the battlefield where flesh got torn apart and blood was raining down. Han Suyang and Yu Young-hyuk, plus Anna Croft, stood there waiting for me, having broken past the scene of pure pandemonium earlier. Han Suyang ran up to me and supported my figure. I looked behind and saw the corpses of heroes, their eyes still wide open. The stars that fell from the skies, fables that would not be told anymore, were now looking at me with resentful eyes. This was the path I had chosen. I knew this would happen from the beginning. It was obvious that the underworld would make their move if I came here. For the sake of that I desired, I used all of their fables. Great fable, torch that swallowed the myth, is crying out. We could see the exit of Olympus in the distance. That was where we had to go. However, there was a constellation blocking our path. I had to ask him why. Dionysus, are you going to stop us? The god of wine and ecstasy, Dionysus leading his congregation, was looking straight back at me. He must have downed several bottles of booze already, because his cheeks were quite obviously flushed red. He stared at me with drunken, unfocused eyes, before opening his mouth while gripping the wine bottle. All of you, step aside. The words of the master prompted the Bacchus's fanatic believers to make way. And we walked on that path. The siren's song and Orpheus's musical performance could be heard wafting in from somewhere. Also, I heard the sound of someone I knew dying among them, too. Kim Dokja didn't look back. My view shook as if I was intoxicated, too. Yet, we walked and walked some more. Eventually, we reached Olympus's exit. Dionysus was right behind us. If I look back, I should be able to see his expression filled with sorrow. He was a constellation who really liked our story. Kim Dokja. My Olympus has no place in the conclusion you're heading to, right? I couldn't reply. That's because I like your story. The one who had been watching my fable for a very long time, and rescued me many, many times in the past. Several constellations including me believe that you're the one capable of reaching. I was about to look back, but Dionysus spoke to me first. It's been fun, oh the great, noble star. I heard the sound of a world closing behind me. My feet didn't want to move. I stood there for a long time without saying anything, and eventually, someone addressed me. It's not over yet. We began walking towards the darkness of the ark. Our destination was right before us. Chapter 500. Gaichin. Part 4. After exiting from Olympus, we remained silent for a long while. We either ran or walked. We ran, and then ran some more. Only the hollow screams could be heard in the starless emptiness. Would those screams be recorded as fables, too? And would someone else listen to them later? Just how many more fables need to repeat themselves before this world came to an end? Kim Dokja. I know. The voice coming from Han Suyang, still supporting me, helped me to get a grip on myself. Eventually, the doorway to the cabin I was searching for could be seen in the distance. Even this far, the door looked much smaller and shabbier compared to other cabins. The corridor we went past earlier was getting noisier. Constellations from different factions were colliding and making those noises. I didn't hesitate and pushed the door open. You have entered prop storage. What's this? What's this shabby? Han Soo-young's utterances came to an immediate stop after she clapped her eyes on the room's interior. The room so big that eyes couldn't see the end of, white sheets covering many places within it. If one were to designate this place as the prop storage, then it'd surely be biggest in the known universe. The cabin where scenarios everything had been gathered. Bai Hyung's fable could be heard next. All the props that had been used in various scenarios are displayed there. From consumable items to the scenario's main rewards, and even star relics from the nebulas that lost their power. The mucus of the hammer seahorse and the thorn of the stonehawk I used to hunt the water dragon were also in here. Back then, I thought I was really going to die, but seeing them like this made me reminisce about my past. Not bad. Some of them are still fairly useful. Yu Young-hyuk had strode over to the props even before I had noticed it and began exchanging his equipment. He sprayed the fable metal coating on his dark heavenly demon sword's blade, swapped out his coat with a new one, and even chucked away his ancient combat boots for a new pair before picking up several star relics. Seeing how his eyes were sparkling so dangerously like that, he must be feeling very pleased with himself right now. Wah! Still fairly useful? I haven't even seen some of these before. Let's quickly grab some and bounce. Han Soo-young too had dived into the piles of items by then, and hurriedly picked the stuff she could use. Even Anna Croft, lucky enough to be supported by a wealthy nebula until recently, bent down and carefully went through the items on display. Like a group of unremarkable incarnations that stumbled onto the scenario's hidden piece, we sought out items, exchanged our equipment, and shared happy grins with one another. They all knew, however, if they didn't do this, they wouldn't be able to endure this moment. Yet another noise of explosions rang outside the room. It sounded much closer than before. So, what's in the next room, then? Was it because of fatigue? Han Soo-young had stopped, predictive plagiarism's story for now. Our gazes met and for a moment there, she raised the corner of her brow slightly. You think writers enjoy writing stories all the time? I could understand the meaning behind her grin now. Even if the world was destroyed, even if the scenario barreled towards tragedy, she'd remain as a writer, always. And that was why it was so much more painful for her. All those different pains yet to be described must still be inside her head even now. And that was why only him, the reader, could make this choice. No, we'll make our stand right here. A choice that only the one filled with greed and obstinacy to see the desired ending could make. Han Soo-young erupted in anger. We weren't going to destroy the core? If we are to reach the core, we need to go through other worldviews of large nebulas. Can't we just go around or something? Like, if we exit through that door, Han Soo-young pointed to a plain door visible in the corner of the room. That door will take us to Emperor. What about that one? That door is connected to Veda's. Son of a... Han Soo-young freaked out, and as she distanced herself from the door, she made sure to place the locks on them. The explosion noise rang out once more. Heavy vibrations resounded out, and someone began pounding on the cabin's door. Along with the sounds of some things exploding, the cabin's walls shook about violently. They are right before us, it seems, said Anna Croft. Han Soo-young scowled deeply and began massaging her forehead. Fable, predictive plagiarism, has resumed its storytelling. In the end, she had to reactivate her fable. Plot developments she didn't want to predict were probably being drawn inside her head. Both Anna Croft possessing precognition and Yu Young-hyuk and his ability to read the patterns after living through countless regressions, began getting ready to fight as well. We need to fight in this place. This is the only room where we have any hope of victory. Every cabin within the final arc contained the recreation of large nebula's worldview. However, there was one location in this arc where no worldview had been recreated. And that was none other than this prop storage, where items to be used in various scenarios were stored away. Applicable cabin isn't under the influence of any worldview. That was the reason why I chose this room as our battleground. They are here. The moment Yu Yonghyuk unsheathed the dark heavenly demon sword, the doors on all four sides burst open simultaneously. Constellations began flooding in through the doorways next. Constellation, master of December 25th, is incarnating into the ark. Constellation, one responsible for the universe's rotation, is joining the battleground along with its servants. Vedas. Constellation, master of Abydos, is incarnating in rage. Constellation, official in charge of earthquakes and volcanoes, is waking up from its ancient slumber. Constellation, ruler of inhalation and exhalation, is waking up its fables. Papyrus. Constellation, one-eyed father, is fixing his grip on his spear. Constellation, one who lost his arm to the wolf of apocalypse, has discovered you. Asgard. Constellation, great mother god who created man out of earth, is incarnating into the ark. Constellation, Darakianjan, is incarnating into the ark. Constellation, emperor of heavens, is sitting on his throne. Constellation, master of the three-pointed double-edged spear, is taking out all of his Paopius. And even emperor, too. The moment all the doors of the storage broke down, fables within the space collided and expanded. The great fables from differing worldviews were letting their voices heard loud and clear. Han Suyang chuckled. Everyone who hates us has gathered in one spot. Over there. Just as someone shouted that out, we quickly retreated to the back. Along with a loud explosion, jet black ash danced in the spot we'd been standing on a moment ago. Great fables have discovered a new cabin. Portion of fables have begun transplanting their worldviews to the new cabin. We didn't have much time here. Quaboom. Explosions rang out as we unsheathed our individual weapons. I too had already kitted myself out from head to toe in all sorts of props from various scenarios. With our backs pressed against each other, we faced the four cardinal directions and unleashed our statuses towards the incoming constellations. Han Suyang fired out, black flame, and flung herself forward. All of you, just die. A pitch-black sphere she threw flew in the air and landed amidst the constellations. I wondered what that was, only for a stonking flame wave to explode out from the item. Kua! I instantly recognized what that was. That was the 95th scenario's reward item called Nightmare Flame Wave, from the 241st regression turn. It was a horrifying fable weapon containing flames dragged out from Eden's hell that unleashed perpetual flames in the area of effect for the next 10 or so years. Measly flames from a destroyed nebula dares to. Along with food dash, noise, Muwa soil created a path in the middle of the conflagration. The Emperor's constellations ran on that road and pounced on us. Some of them happened to be the same lot that fought against us back during the journey to the west. Han Suyang noisily gritted her teeth. They managed to show up here, yet why haven't you come yet, Black Flame Dragon? Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, shouts out that you must wait for a little bit longer. The number of constellations entering through the doors easily surpassed a couple of hundreds, 300, 4, 5, every constellation found in the worldviews were now streaming into this huge room. And as their numbers continued to grow, the effects of the stage transformation grew stronger in the middle of them. The once colorless floor morphed into the desolate desert and a massive pyramid suddenly rose up from there. The master of Abydos, Osiris, spoke up. I was wondering who managed to wake me up, but this. Right afterwards, clouds gathered in the sky above and the panoramic view of the heavenly world spread out. The great mother god who created man out of earth, Nuwa, spoke to us next. It's not too late, children. I can make spots available for you all. On whose authority? I thought I could hear the trumpeting of elephants, only to realize that it was the master of December 25th, Mitra, riding atop the head of a gigantic turtle, speaking up. Only punishment fitting for those rejecting this celebration day for my revival is death. Odin, sitting on the edge of the universe tree's branch, stared at me with the eye capable of seeing through all things in creation. Oh, you foolish star, did you honestly believe you can fight against us all? A loud burst of laughter could be heard. All the stars, their great fables already secured within this safe ark, were laughing at us. With a fable that hasn't even reached myth level yet, how dare you? The bird that devours thunder tried to throw some third-rate utterances in our direction, but then, its mouth suddenly emitted pushu-shuk noise before being cleanly penetrated from behind. Yu Yong-hyuk had somehow appeared behind the creature's back and cut the fool's head off right there and then. You talk too much. Kill them. The battle commenced. We were overwhelmingly outnumbered, but we aggressively utilized the nearby props to their fullest in our fight. Fable weapons we could rely on were scattered about all over the place. Especially for the weapon storage for the 60th scenario, which seemed to be designed solely with Yu Yong-hyuk in mind. Comrade of life and death, has begun its storytelling. Comrade, Hellscape of Eternity, has begun its storytelling. Yu Yong-hyuk's talents displayed earlier during the Demon King selection battles were now shining brightly. He was the all-rounder. He mastered handling every type of weapons out there while living through 1863 regression turns, and now, he was massacring constellations with a great bow. Kill him first. Historical figure-grade constellations were sniped to death by Yu Yong-hyuk's rapid firing, and the debris falling from the dying stars created protective walls. We ran between them and continued to fight. Dodge to the right. Almost at the same time as Anna's warning rang out, a rapid attack from the myth-grade constellation swept by near our heels. Avoiding fatal injuries after getting struck by such attacks would be quite difficult. The stock of Isil was, life and death pills, had almost run out by now, so we weren't able to deal with serious wounds anymore. Lower-ranked constellations of Asgard pounced on Anna Croft. How dare you betray our nebula? Splat. The head of the constellation roaring out exploded, just like that. A lengthy tongue-like thing flew out from behind Anna Croft and burst open that constellation's head. Constellation who likes changing gender is smirking. The backer that helped her betray the nebula was now helping us, too. Kim Dokja. Holding out any further will be impossible. Yu Yong-hyuk's reached his limit, too. The attentions of the myth-grade constellations were focused on Yu Yong-hyuk. The weapon storage was burning in flames, while he was swinging a huge hammer around to ward off the constellations, his whole body bathed in blood. Kim Dokja began rummaging through the prop storage to find something. Found it. I picked up a test tube located at the very end of the Star Relic category. This was written on the label stuck to the tube, Shindansu seed. I unhesitantly dropped that seed on the floor. It quickly sprouted a new bud and in a blink of an eye, grew into a tree as tall as me. But it stopped there. Great Fable, Shindansu, is spreading its roots. Great Fable, Shindansu, is perceiving your existence. Great Fable, Shindansu, requires a fable for the sake of Gaichin. The whole prop storage was now up in flames. Yu Yong-hyuk was holding up pretty well until now. Constellations looking into his venomous eyes freaked out and yelled at each other. This is the prop storage. Use items to fight him off. The first thing they found was an item we were quite familiar with as well, the Absolute Throne. The core item of the fourth scenario that granted anyone acquiring it with the Outer God's blessing. The historical figure-grade constellations discovering the throne rushed towards it with greed-filled eyes. I stopped Han Suyong from rushing there too. Let them be. The historical figure-grade constellations swarmed towards it. The throne is mine. The moment someone stepped on the absolute throne, I clutched the Shindansu-'s leaf. No matter how hard I pondered it, the fable that I could afford to feed this guy had to be this one. A portion of constellations felt something was off and hurriedly shouted at the absolute throne. Wait. Stop. Just as the status leaking out from the absolute throne was about to flood in this direction, something buried deep inside my chest began to writhe. Fable, King of a Kingless World, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Shindansu, has detected the beginning of a new fable. This story began by destroying that throne. Kwa 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 kwa. The Shindansu gobbled up the fable and acquired the explosive amount of probability, allowing it to grow larger again. A new worldview is taking root in the applicable location. Shindansu. The large nebula Hongik's great fable. I addressed the constellations. As you have said, we don't have a myth. However, we have always been fighting together with a certain myth. And that fable began telling its story. No other myths could escape from this story. The Shindansu instantly reached up to the storage's ceiling and massive explosion noises resounded out next. The arc ceiling began collapsing. Gaichin is commencing. The heavens started opening up as powerful whirlwinds swirled around. Aged stars of an ancient nebula are waking up from their endless slumber. Accompanied by the blinding rays of light, shadows of tree branches in full bloom were cast on the torn sky. Stars began appearing on the ends of the shadows like ripened fruits. That throne, it's been a while. 7 stars were now dangling on the ends of the branches. Constellations of the Big Dipper that aided me with destroying the absolute throne were there. Countless constellations began descending from the sky like shooting stars. Constellation, Bald General of Justice, is incarnating into the Ark. Constellation, King Hungmu, is incarnating into the Ark. Constellation, Slumbering Lady of Fine Brocade, is incarnating into the Ark. Constellation, Heaven's Wind God, is incarnating into the Ark. Only these stars were willing to become our allies in this arc. A sword crashed down like lightning among the descending constellations and the absolute throne exploded into bits. The constellation trampling on the false king above the wrecked throne looked at me and spoke. Good work, descendant. Constellation, Goryo's first sword, is incarnating into the arc.